So you finished your research and now it's time to actually present your outcome, remembering your outcome is just the answer to your research question. Most of you are going to have considered doing an essay or a report, but ask yourselves, is writing really your thing? If it's not your thing, carry on listening to the presentation and I'm going to present some alternative options to you. So the first option I'm going to talk about is Google voice typing. Now every student in the school has a Google Drive account. If you don't know how to log into your Google Drive, pop over to ICT support and they'll be able to talk you through. Your Google Drive gives you access to the full range of the G Suite tools, and one of those tools is Google Docs. When you have a Google Doc open, if you go to Tools and then go to Voice Typing, Google will write your report or essay for you. Okay? So you don't actually have to type. If you use the voice typing tool in Google, you can just speak to the computer, it will type for you. You'll probably have to go back and just check that it has heard you correctly, that it has put the right words down, and you'll check the grammar. You might have to check spelling as well. I think it comes up with American spelling. But it's a lot easier and a lot quicker than typing yourself. If you still don't want to do writing, but you don't want to deal with words at all, it's just not your thing, you can't face the idea of actually going through and proofreading something and checking the grammar and spelling, Audacity is a free tool and you can create your own podcast. All you need to do, hit record, and you can be talking to the computer and it's just going to record your voice. So you'd have a script, or you'd certainly have some dot points and evidence that you'd written down, so that when you talk about your key findings, the key parts of your answers, you can then also talk about your evidence, your substantiation, to support what you're saying. And then all you would do is when you finish the recording, you'd export it as an audio file. And then you would have sort of a reference list or something, a piece of paper that's just got those evidence points on it. Now that can be as simple or as complicated as you want. If you just want to talk to the computer, hit stop, export the audio, hand it in, do your reference list, no problem. But if you fancy yourself as a bit of a radio journalist, if you want to take it to the next level, you can create your own radio program. You can have music at the start. If you have done an interview as part of your research and you have an audio recording of that interview, you might drop that into your podcast. It can be as simple or as complex. The important thing is whichever format you choose, you have to remember to include your evidence. All of your key findings, all of your statements must be supported by your references, by your substantiation. VoiceOver PowerPoint. If you have decided that you want to present your outcome as a PowerPoint, so you don't want to just do audio, you don't want to just do words, you want to combine those two ideas and have visual information and written information, a VoiceOver PowerPoint is a really good option for you. You would create your slides as normal, but then you would go to Insert, Media, Audio, Record Audio. Then it's as simple as hitting record. As you talk, it will record the audio that's relevant to your slides. Now you might have something on there that's your substantiation. You might have some evidence on there, an in-text reference, a full reference. So you could be talking about your key findings, talking about your evidence that supports your key finding, and you could have the actual reference on display. Or it might be an image, it might be something else. PowerPoint can do some amazing things. It can do really beautiful transitions. You can do a very, very stylish presentation, or you can do a very simple presentation. We're grading you on your content. The quality of the answer to your question, the quality of your substantiation, and your ability to communicate clearly. But this is a good option. Once you've finished recording, you'd hit stop and insert. And it creates this little audio icon so that when it's presented back, that audio will play. You can also set it up to autoplay, so as you flick on each slide, the audio will automatically start. So that's another option. So far we've looked at, all right, so I want to do something written, but I don't really like writing. So that's where I talked about your Google voice typing tool. Then we talked about Audacity, just to record your voice. I don't want anything to do with words. I don't want to check grammar and spelling. That's not my thing. I'm just going to record my answer. So Audacity is a really good tool. And you can step that up to the next level by making it a really good radio podcast. We've then talked about combining image and text and doing a voiceover PowerPoint. Another important thing with voiceover PowerPoint, it needs to be a PPTX file. If you don't do it as a PPTX, when you transfer that to another computer, when a teacher tries to mark it, when a moderator tries to view it, that file won't play for them probably. But a PPTX is the most reliable format. If you want to step it up another level, if you fancy yourself as a bit of a video filmmaker, a bit of a documentary maker, you can do a documentary. So I'm going to share something with you that Paul did for me. There are a couple of different options with video. Just the same way with audio. A couple of different options. Paul took quite a simple route with video. So he put a camera up, he shot footage, and then he did a voiceover afterwards using editing software. Paul got an A- for his outcome. And he starts off talking about a general introduction, explaining that he's a member of a boxing gym and that his research project question is, how can I best prepare for my first boxing match using homemade equipment? And that's just his introduction there. The thing that I want to concentrate on with you here is I want to show you how Paul has substantiated his findings. How did he provide evidence?
The Mexican WBC middleweight champion. He's also the #1 champion middleweight contender in the world. Here he's using a slip line. Unfortunately, I don't have a ring at home, so I use 2 trees. To make a slip line at home, I tie off a hand wrap between 2 trees.
So what's happened there? He is leading into the first exercise and the first piece of equipment that he's going to use as part of his training regime to help him answer his question. He hasn't just said, oh, the first exercise I use is a slip line and this is how you create one. What he's actually done is said, here is a professional boxer. These are the matches he's won. This is his credibility. This is how good he is. And this is an exercise that this boxer does. Then he has shown how he replicates that at home. So he's got really, really strong substantiation there. And he's done it by using video footage of somebody else and dropping that into his video. So he then talks you through setting up the slip line and shows you the technique. He's then going to move on to the next exercise. And again, he says, here's some evidence. Here's somebody else doing this next exercise.
To make a slip bag at home, I use long skins with a slip bag or a swinging motion, so ankle weights.
So he talks you through how he's made it at home, because that was his question. How can I best prepare for my first boxing match using homemade equipment? So his evidence is these are the best exercises, and then he's got experimentation, and he's demonstrated the outcome of his practical research by saying this is how I've created that gym equipment at home. And then he shows you how he's used it. More evidence, more substantiation. This is the next exercise. This is a professional boxer doing it. Here's me doing the same thing. Professional boxer, here's me doing it. All the way through, this is supported by evidence. The substantiation is really, really strong. At the end, you've got a nice conclusion as well, because you've actually got his boxing match.
Here is the first minute of my first amateur boxing match.
And Paul voices over the footage of his boxing match as he's giving the conclusion to his presentation. Now that was a very simple version, so that was just recorded footage and voiceover. I'm now going to show you another level of video making, more like a documentary. Do you remember when I said when you do a podcast and you use Audacity, you can have a really, really simple response to that and just hit record and talk. Or you can turn it into a more professional kind of podcast that you might hear broadcast on the radio and have music that introduces it and different things going on. So this is the video version of that. Paul got an A- with a very straightforward approach to creating a video. Ella gets an A- as well. So when you're looking at the difference in the way the video has been made, it did not affect the grade. Both grades are the same because we grade you on the content, your ability to answer the question, your ability to provide evidence, substantiate your findings, and your ability to communicate clearly.
If you are looking for one simple notion of dance, you will shortly find yourself on a path of continuous searching, as there are so many elements that go into the definition of dance. There are so many beneficial ways in which dancing can help a person. While dance offers physical benefits, it also creates significant effects on mental health. Effects such as creating positive relationships with others and with self, through dancing with strong social engagement, to also integrating movements to help a patient with Parkinson's disease and increase quality of life, to limiting stress from having a negative impact on mental health and everyday life.
What you've just heard there is basically the introduction to an essay. Ella has said, there is no one answer to what is dance. Dance helps you form strong social relationships. It helps people relax and reduce stress. It helps sufferers of Parkinson's on their road to recovery. It's all the points that she's going to talk about in the video, exactly the same as when you're writing an essay. Your introduction explains all the points that you're going to talk about in that essay. I'm going to skip through. I want to show you how she's done substantiation here. So she's saying, scientists have found that. So she doesn't mention Hansen in her voiceover. She's got the substantiation there. She's created the equivalent of an in-text reference with a graphic. And she does that all the way through. There's another one. There's another one. So every time she's stating one of her key findings, she's supporting it with evidence. When I was talking about the podcast and I said if you'd done an interview, you could drop in the audio of that interview. Ella's done the same thing in her video. So I didn't show you much of the interview there, but you can see that there is an interview. She's dropped footage of that in. She's also using two different techniques with the camera. Paul used the camera to record footage, and then he did a voiceover. Ella is combining two different ideas. She has recorded footage and she's done a voiceover, but she's also doing these pieces to camera as well, where she's just sitting and she's actually directly talking to the camera.
Their bodies only respond in negative ways. And
there you go, so there's a voiceover. There's a piece to camera where she's actually talking directly to the camera. She's also dropped in evidence. As part of her research, she took one of her HBE classes that had a really full-on lesson. And so for the last few minutes of the lesson, she choreographed a dance routine that they could do together so that she could then measure the effects of doing dance. And then she's got people to reflect and talk about what was the impact of that. Last thing I want to show you is at the very end with the reference list. So Ella does her conclusion.
Major changes have been proven to be made through dancing. However, if this extent is not quite achieved, the most reliable effect dancing has on mental health is improvement in happiness and pure joy.
And rather than credits, she's got her reference list. If you have decided to do a video, a documentary of some sort, there's a range of software available. iMovie, Windows Movie Maker, unless you're on Windows 10. Windows 10 no longer supports Movie Maker. Smoke, which is Autodesk software. All students actually have the ability to download any Autodesk software for free. You just need to create an account on the Autodesk website and you'll be able to have full range to all of their software. Other video options are Lightworks, that's another free one. Camtasia, which is a paid version. And the school also has a license for Adobe Premiere Pro. So all the computers in media, in tech, in art, they all have the Adobe Creative Cloud software on there. So if you wanted to use Adobe Premiere Pro, chat to a teacher and arrange to have access to one of those computers.